first, I cannot believe how many people are here. This is exciting. This is the third ACE lunch I've done, and there's a lot of people here. I hope that I'm good. So when I wrote because Buffy asked me probably last year if I would speak at one of the ACE lunches, and you have to write a short synopsis of what it is you're going to talk about. And in it, I don't know if you saw it, but in it I wrote that I'm going to talk about how we have Black Girl Magic and the power of Black Girl Magic. And I was nervous to send that to Buffy, because to say that it's a powerful statement. And my nervousness is illustrative of that line that a lot of us walk here at Elon and in the world, but at Elon, we'll talk about Elon, where we are in spaces where sometimes we are the only Black woman or the only woman of color, and you want to say things and you're not sure how that would be received. And so you find ways to maneuver around to accomplish your same goal. And it is political, it is cultural, it is economic, it is social, it is racial, it is gendered, it is a lot. And it is not unusual. A lot of you are nodding. And so I know that it is a normal, usual state that we are in, where we kind of are trying to maneuver between these two worlds. I also know, and I wish she were here, but I'm going to say her name even though she's not here. I was at a meeting, senior staff, in December. I was at the senior staff retreat, which, by the way, I invited myself to. And I was like, I think I should go. And they're like, okay. So I got to stay in the hotel. It was very fancy. And like Leo said, you can come, but you have to go to all the meetings. I was like, I'm going to go. And so I was sitting next to Brooke Barnett on this side, Randy Williams on this side, and Jean Radigan Roar. And so as I'm looking across the table, the women and people of color are sitting next to me. And so I'm looking across the table and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 55-year-old white guys. That's being recorded, but they know they are. And it took my breath away. I thought, oh my gosh, this is the reality of where we are negotiating identities. And this is the space that we're doing it in. The next year I spoke at the athletic department, and I was sitting in the front row, and I would say her name even though she's not here, Marquita, sitting next to Marquita. And I turned around and looked behind me and went, oh my gosh, because it was a group of all white males wearing the same outfit. Khaki pants, right? You've been there. And I went, oh my God. And Marquita, who did not look around behind her, said, yeah, I know. And so that is how I know it is normal. It is our daily resting state here. But the fact that every day we get up, put on our makeup, put on our clothes, we come here and we advocate for our students, we teach our classes, we figure out ways to negotiate around to accomplish our goals and have the conversations that we need to have, that is magic. And so it is normal, yet it is magical. And so that's sort of where I view Insecure, because I think that Issa is, anyone who has never seen the show? Okay, so you've all seen okay, only one person, okay. So we're gonna show some clips, and if you're opposed to foul language, sorry. There's one in particular, you know what it is. But and this is really only from the first season because I don't want to ruin too much of it, because it's just a great show. But what Issa does and what she reminds me of is how normal being or having Black girl magic is. And because you have to if you're going to survive in cultures that you are often the only one. And so if you don't know who Issa is, I have a little clip. Issa Rae is, she went to Stanford University. She is a writer, producer, director of her own work. And the first time I got to know Issa, and maybe some of you don't know this, is, let's see if I can make this work. Oh no, okay.
Am I the only one who pretends I'm in a music myself. Booty shots, booty shots. Niggas wanna fuck me from behind. Niggas know his ass. Niggas want to look on his booty. They ain't got a chance. I'm gonna be like, leave it, Awkward moment. What's the protocol for repeatedly running into someone at a stop sign? Oh my God! No, seriously. What the fuck is it? Are you supposed to acknowledge them every time? And how many fake laughs are acceptable before it becomes too much? No, I saw you. Is it rude to do the dramatic slowdown? Or what about the fake phone?
Don't choke.
There's only so long I can hold a fake conversation.
No, I'm told, yeah, no, yeah.
Ordinary person, it's a sign of direction. But for me, it's the epitome of social misdirection. Because I'm awkward.
Oh, fuck, another fucking stop sign? Are you shitting me? You're hilarious. Oh my gosh. Oh, another stop sign. Let's talk at work, right? You know,
My name is Jay, and I'm awkward.
Okay, so this is the first episode of Awkward Black Girl, and all of these are on YouTube. You can watch the whole series in probably 2 hours, even though it's like 3 seasons long. They're really short, but they're just so much fun. But I feel like with that was really her first platform, and that's where she became well known. And so Shonda Rhimes saw her and tried to develop a show based on this awkward black girl character for ABC, and it did not work. ABC executives were like, this doesn't feel right for us. And so then Larry Wilmore, he's produced a couple of shows, and he had his own show for a while. He figured out the right thing to do was for her to actually be as authentic as possible. And to do that, you have to go to HBO. So that's why her show is on HBO. So when the program starts, when Insecure starts, she is a 29-year-old college graduate, and she's a youth liaison for a nonprofit called We Got Y'all. And she lives with her longtime boyfriend, Lawrence. Who's Team Lawrence? What?
So attractive.
He's so attractive. Oh my gosh, I'm Team Lawrence. All right. But she is caught between, okay, enough about Team Lawrence. She's caught between these two worlds, these two worlds that we sort of are, we are caught between too. An example of that, let me pull that up off of this computer. Okay, so here's Issa, right? She is working in a community, like working with students of color, working with black students. The second season, she's working more with Latino students, which is another great discussion, that, and how they're treated differently. It's really fascinating. But, and she's trying to establish her credibility, her bona fides in front of this class, and they are not having any of it. So I just pulled up a couple of the quotes from the students that I thought kind of indicative of this space where she is. Why you talk like a black girl, or like a white girl. And then she says, you got me, I'm rocking blackface. What's up with your hair? I did this to my hair on purpose. My dad says, nobody's looking for bitter ass black women. We aren't bitter, we're just, so she's trying to, again, relate to these kids, but also trying to be who she is. Also, I want to point, if you can see it, I can show it in the next slide. And so she's trying to be this teacher, right? And she's trying to teach what she thinks is important. And the kids only want to talk about what's important to them. And so she's in a space where, and I feel like this is the first scene where we start to think a little bit about code switching, which is a term that we have used, throughout the 70s, of how we go in between people of color and people from different backgrounds, go in between different spaces to navigate the situations. And so here, she is yielding to expectations of one dominant culture while trying to relate to her own students, people of her own background. And so it often feels like to do the code switching, we do it to be successful and to make other people comfortable, but it often makes us uncomfortable. But we are well trained to do it, right? We've all been taught to do that. At least Black women have been. I don't know about white women, probably not the same. But we certainly are trained to do that. And so I feel like this show does a great, it talks a lot about code switching without using the terms code switching. And so here's one of the examples, her job. If you notice the t-shirt for "We Got Y'all the White Hand," helping the Black students. It's unbelievable. You can buy these shirts on HBO.com, they're $25. And I think, like, I would love to have the shirt if people knew what the shirt was about, but I can't just walk around Elon with that shirt, right? Because it means something different if you don't know what it is. But this is her boss, Joanne, who runs this nonprofit designed to help Black students. And she says to Issa, which I think, again, perfect, brilliant writing. She says to Issa, "I'm not sure if I want to use the W.D. Boys method of teaching or the Booker T. Washington. If you know anything, those are two very different ways of teaching." And so if she isn't sure, she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't have any idea what she's doing. And I think that's a subtle moment that the writer, Issa, is saying that this is often what a lot of these nonprofit groups who are helping Black children, that they're going into communities and not really understanding what the experience is. And Issa does say in the show itself, that she's working with kids in the hood, although she's not hired anyone from the hood. And so it's just people sort of fish out of water trying to help these kids. The other really interesting thing about Joanne is if you've seen the show, you may remember you go into her office, she's got like kente cloths and pictures of Beyonce, like it's all the same kind of cultural signals. It's fascinating. Again, a brilliant moment. And so Issa works here, right? And so she has to navigate with Joanne that discussion between Du Bois and Washington. In a different situation, she may say, "You don't know what you're doing. You are not qualified to be doing this." But Issa's like, "It's a good question." When in actuality, no, it's not a good question. Those are two very different things. And so she, again, is navigating this, trying to make her job work. And then I think another example where the code switching is very clear is in the guys. So Lawrence, where did Lawrence go to college? Who remembers? Georgetown. And he is a media entrepreneur. He's a media tech entrepreneur, but he is unemployed in the first season because he's got this idea for a dating app. And so he's just sitting on the couch. He's kind of depressed, but clearly doing sit-ups. Because he's like amazing. Oh my gosh, he's gorgeous. Oh gosh. There's like a scene of him in this white turtleneck. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so that's Lawrence. And he is this idealized, like he's this great boyfriend. He cooks and stuff, but he doesn't have a job because he's waiting for this right tech moment. And then there's a guy from the past, Daniel. You guys are Team Daniel?
Yes.
Seriously? Yes. Oh, whatever. So Daniel is a friend from high school. He's a music producer, and she meets him in a club, but he is in the studio, which also means what?
It's work.
If you were to go home and tell your mother, "I'm dating a guy who's in the studio," that means he doesn't have a job. That's what that means. Now, he is making money. You just are on Team Daniel. You don't care. But he's also in the studio smoking pot all day, too. That's not a job. Is it a job? I don't think that's a job. But anyway, so again, these two spaces that she's navigating in between, we're doing what is, and you can even tell she's not really feeling Lawrence right there. But this space where she feels like Lawrence is the guy who she's supposed to be with, and then I'm gonna ruin it if you've not seen it, but then she kind of sneaks around with Daniel because she is feeling this other side of herself. That she's like, I feel like I am more myself with Daniel than with Lawrence. But again, she still loves Lawrence, but she just seems to be more authentic with herself when she's with Daniel. And how do we know that? Well, okay, so if you don't like language, sorry. Okay, so she meets him at a club. You all know what's happening. And he encourages her. So this is her 29th birthday, and he encourages her to get on stage and perform a rap. So in this case, thank you for doing the lights on. So in this case, it's her 29th birthday, right? And she's going through this midlife crisis, right? Those of us who are over 29 are like, whatever. But get over yourself. But she is sort of going through this change of life kind of moment. And so she is embracing this other side of her that really, and if you watch the whole series, you know, but she did rap before. She did have that relationship with Daniel from before, but had moved away from that after she went to Stanford and all. And so she is longing for that connection to her past. And so Daniel is the reflection of that. And then the rap, obviously, is the reflection of that. And so we go from teacher talk to Friday night talk, I'll call it. And Issa's rap, it allows her to be free in some way. It does free her brain in a way, and she starts teaching differently if you watch the series. But what happens? What? The students, well, friendship goes bad for a little bit, but her students see the rap. The students find it on YouTube, and she goes into class and she's having moments of connection with them, and the students start repeating the rap back to her. And so she's like, okay, so all this work that I've done to establish some credibility as a teacher working for We Got Y'all is now, she fears it's all being taken away because the Friday night talk is now showing up with the teacher talk, right? And so there is this moment that she's like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? What is fascinating, and I don't know if the show did this on purpose, but everything is on purpose, is that actually makes the students connect with her better because they trust her more. But, okay, this is way nuanced. But she wants to get it taken down because she's afraid that Joanne will see it and she'll lose her job. Issa will lose her job. So she goes to Daniel and says, who posted it? How do we get it off? And Daniel, he can't figure out who posted it. He can't take it off. Who gets it offline? Lawrence, which is why I'm Team Lawrence. And so Lawrence is able to take it down, not because he knows people from the club, but he knows people in tech. And Team Lawrence, white turtleneck, that's right. And so he's able to get it taken down. But what happens as a result is that she is able to find good in what's familiar. And so then she's able to connect with the students to tell them what is familiar to them, what is in their own backyards that makes them celebrate being Black children in LA. And so they go to the beach, and a lot of the kids have never been to the beach, and they complain the whole way out there because they're on a hot bus. But what else is out there? They have a fundraiser, not at Malibu, but in the neighborhood where they live. And the students are shocked that there are people who have big houses like that just up the street from their school because they didn't recognize what was in their own backyards. And so Issa did find a way to connect with the students authentically, even though for her it was somewhat mortifying. So here's where I go into how this is effective storytelling. This is now my calm stuff coming out. Issa tries to work within both worlds, and she actually finds that working in between both spaces works best when she is her authentic self. And so she is relying on Lawrence for some things. She is with Daniel for other things. We'll just say that. Oh my. And then the navigation through her daily life is normal, right? She normalizes being in the studio. She normalizes working with the kids. It's not magic, but it is, right? She does all of these normal things, which then makes her a more effective educator at the end of the day. And that the normalization is ultimately liberating. When she realizes that she just needs to be who she is, she can't hide from the rap, right? She just has to be who she is, that is actually liberating. And I think, and this is actually the thesis of my project, that it's very rare on a television program for producers to acknowledge the normal live-in life of Black women and how really magical it actually is, because I was talking to my mother about this. She goes, well, what about Olivia Pope? Like, I don't know anyone like Olivia Pope. I don't know, first of all, who could wear that much white? But second, like, nobody knows anyone like Olivia Pope. That's not a real representation of Black women. And I think for the 7 years that, Scandal was really, people were still watching it, it's awful now, but people that the discussion is how great, there's finally a successful Black woman. I don't know anyone like that. And so I do know people like Issa. Oh, yes, she is. Oh, she is. The character's based on a real person, but Olivia Pope is, I mean, but yeah, she is based on a real person. But sort of the, undercover CIA stuff, like Judy Smith didn't do any of that. So anyway, so this is where I sort of live now, is that television producers need to find ways to tap into that normal part, the everyday part of our identities, and that actually can be successful, as we have seen Insecure is extremely successful.